Hello everybody! As you see, I'm the little face in the corner again, and on the big screen we have T.L. Zalecki, who is, I believe, the first science fiction author selected by the Kindle Scout program. Do you happen to know if you're the first? You're at least one of the first.
That's a good question. I am one of the first. I'm, selected during the beta stage, so one of the first 40 books in total through the program, yeah.
So yeah, how I met Tanya is I got lucky, basically. She came to my formatting company to have the book formatted so that it would look nice on the Kindle screen. And she's actually the first author that we had who went through this Kindle Scout program, and it was very exciting actually to watch the process unfold, and it was super exciting when she actually was selected for publication by Kindle Scout. But do you want to sort of give a little bit of background about yourself and how you became a writer?
Sure. 5 years ago, I never would have thought I would have become a writer. It was something I always wanted to do and never really put pen to paper because I think it was intimidating, like the querying process and the writing process and everything. And one of my close friends ended up self-publishing on Amazon a book called Eliza's Shadow. And I said, if she can do that, maybe I can do it too. So I sat down and I began writing Sirens. That was 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And once it was ready to be published, I was planning on self-publishing, and then I learned about Kindle Scout. So it was really perfect timing for me to be able to submit it. And I was lucky enough to get selected. So it's been a good experience so far.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the nuts and bolts of Kindle Scout in a moment. But first, let's talk about your book, Sirens. So your first book, Sirens, went through the Kindle Scout program, got selected, and is now published. And I haven't finished it yet, but I have been reading it. And what I really like about it is that there's a lot of sort of pop fiction sci-fi that sort of takes on the idea of religion taking over the world or things like that. But I think that Sirens actually has a much better model of how this happens, because it's not particularly lampooning religious people or non-religious people. A corporation with a set of philosophies that are very appealing to people who don't think in the long term, I guess is a way to put it. I don't know if you've got a better way to articulate this entity that is ruling the world, basically, in your world. And so how would you characterize this PanDivinity movement that has taken over?
Right. Well, yeah, I would definitely classify my book as a dystopian fantasy.
Yes.
But I did want to be careful because there were some themes I was trying to put forth in my book, but some of them are controversial. And so I wanted to be careful that, this did appeal to everybody, and it was respectful of, different religions.
Absolutely.
But in my book, I kind of show the slippery slope of where the world can go, where people can go when they're not using their minds and they're not thinking from themselves, basically. Right. So this is like the worst case scenario of kind of corporations becoming these mega powerful entities and harnessing the power that religions have over people to do that. So they kind of suck the religions into their corporate power, and the lines between government and corporation and religion kind of blur, and people have already been sucked in. So it becomes a slippery slope, and then, it's on a global basis in my book. So PanDivinity is this kind of evil megacorp, and it has spawns of kind of children companies. Mm-hmm. I suppose it's the parent organization, and so everything spawns from PanDivinity. So you have Divinway, which is the global grocer, and Divin Tour, which tours outer space and under the submerged cities, and then Divinogen, which is the pharmaceutical company, kind of biogenetics and pharmaceutical company, which my main character, who is a marine biologist, works for. And in the beginning of the story, she starts to doubt her job. She's somewhat idealistic, and she's hoping she's doing something good for the ocean. And she begins to doubt her job and doubt her boss. So through Divinogen. Right.
And one thing I thought you did real well with PanDivinity is that you pointed out that the old religions had a lot more to them, a lot more philosophies that aren't as convenient to a consumer society. And PanDivinity had sort of stripped those out. So it was very much, PanDivinity was about what is convenient in the now for this great big corporation.
Yeah, that's a good point. PanDivinity definitely kind of picked and chose which components of religion they wanted to use to kind of string along the public and people. And I do make a point that religions have some beautiful components to them and some things that, you know, are important in our society, but, you know, you have to be careful not to let those get stripped away by perverting certain beliefs and parts of those religions and those belief systems.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about the state of the world under PanDivinity, especially environmentally. What kind of Earth do you
depict? So it takes place in the near future, where the global warming has happened and ocean levels have risen. Mm-hmm. There is algae that's kind of smothered a lot of the ocean life. It's flourished in the warmer temperatures, and a lot of the coastal cities around the world have been swallowed up by the ocean. So mm-hmm. Miami is pretty much underwater. Mm-hmm. Like, if you can imagine, and you kind of see this on the cover of my book, if you look closely, you see a submerged skyline of skyscrapers. Cities are literally underwater. So mm-hmm. as this is happening, there's this diminishing of resources combined with just a flourishing population of humans, like kind of ants spreading out across the earth, just too many people for the amount of resources that there are. Mm-hmm. And on top of all of this, antibiotics don't really work anymore. Right. So I did a lot of research on this issue as well. Right. You know, it's a potential scenario. I mean, as we overuse antibiotics, right. there's a chance that these bacteria get stronger and they just, right. it's powerless. So mm-hmm. There's an algae that the sirens have that's kind of a cure-all for the bacterial infections, and it also extends life, and it's just kind of this wonder ingredient, and that's kind of at the gist of the story.
Yeah, and the sirens have stayed pretty mysterious and off stage for a fair amount of the book, and it's just, I think it's a really good example of strong exposition, bringing the sirens in. So is your background marine biology, or what's your
not at all? Mm-hmm. In another life, maybe I should have been a marine biologist. I love it. Mm-hmm. But I did have, just because science is something I love, but mm-hmm. I don't have a strength in it as far as, educational training. I had one of my beta readers who's a pathologist, veterinarian, and doctor. So mm-hmm. she was great in calling out the parts that didn't make sense. Right. So in some ways, Lorel, my main character, was based off of her, because she's a woman I really admire. She uses her expertise to do cancer research. She's great, and she really helped me with the book as well.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a bit about Lorel, who is probably your main character. There's quite a few. There's at least 3 different viewpoints, if I'm recalling correctly. Right. But really, I think Lorel is the one who's got the strongest narrative thread that takes it through the whole plot. So why don't you tell us a little bit about her?
Sure. So Lorel, she's got her PhD in marine biology, and she's just received it at the beginning of the book. She's idealistic. She loves the ocean and ocean life. Her father was a paleontologist, and she kind of grew up traveling the world with him. But what's interesting about her is, in this world of PanDivinity and kind of mind control, mm-hmm. Lorel and her father are people who kind of see through that veil and don't fully buy into it. Right. And they kind of look at the rest of the world like, why don't people think a little bit more about their actions and what they're doing? Mm-hmm. So she's a bit idealistic. She wants to use her career to save the ocean. Mm-hmm. And so she takes a job in the beginning of the story with Dr. Rushing, a very esteemed marine biologist, to do some research on a rare strand of algae, and it's a top secret job. So that's where she starts to doubt it. But she's definitely the protagonist in the book, and someone that I relate to, and I hope that the readers will relate to.
And one thing I really liked about her, it's maybe just sort of a small thing about her, but I always like when women are portrayed with a positive body image, and she's in an extreme world where you can take pills to look skinny, to enlarge your bust size, to make your hair turn violet, to make your eyes turn, whatever color of the rainbow. And she's kind of a complete outsider because she goes off these pills completely. So she's one of the few people walking around with natural hair, natural eyes, natural body shape, and So
they're called PAPs for short. That's the acronym, but it's phenotype altering pills. Mm-hmm. something that Divinogen, the pharmaceutical company, has come out with, and it literally changes your phenotype, which is the way your genes are expressed. So on this genetic level, it's changing appearances and skin color, eye color, hair color. So it's pretty much the common thing for people to do. You take a cocktail of these pills, and some are mood altering as well. So again, looking at society today and looking at how certain things can be a slippery slope, the PAPs are certainly part of that. But Lorel has prided herself now on not taking PAPs anymore. She flushed her last bottle down the toilet, and the only thing she has is some hair that's like a strand of hair that's hand dyed, just kind of for her own fun.
Right.
But she's shunned that part of society,
which I think would probably make a person stand out quite a bit.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. She doesn't have pink hair or purple hair. It's just plain old brown.
So how would you sort of summarize the story of Sirens without giving away the ending? What would you sort of do as sort of your pitch logline of Sirens Book 1?
It's always hard to put things in a nutshell, but I would say, there's a society of people, the Sirens, who have, they're not mermaids, they don't have tails, they're just kind of a branch of people that deviated. If you kind of look back on the branch of human evolution, they come from a common ancestor, and they just evolved to have more aquatic capabilities. So this species has been in existence on an island. They've stayed secluded and undiscovered by humanity in general for centuries, and they suddenly want to come out of isolation. So led by one of the Sirens on the island, Mello, they make some moves to come out of isolation, and their way to do that is by striking a deal with the mega corporation Divinogen Inc., because the Sirens have something to offer them. And you realize that the Sirens are naive, but it takes its course in an interesting and kind of unexpected way.
Yeah. And why don't you hold up the book, because it's got a very cool cover.
So this is the cover. This is the paperback cover of Sirens. And I mentioned the underwater cities. If you look closely at it, you can see there. So. And
the strand of DNA I thought was really cool.
Yes, my cover designer, Paul Cappella, did an awesome job. So.
Awesome. So Sirens is already for sale. That's out, and that's been published. And the second book now is up on Kindle Scout. And so let's talk a little bit about the Kindle Scout program.
Sure. The Kindle Scout program is great because it gives indie authors a chance to do something besides just self-publish. A lot of people have dreams of getting published by a well-known big publishing house, but I mean, it's extremely overwhelming and near impossible when you're submitting your query letters to an agent that gets, hundreds a day. So Kindle Scout, you're guaranteed to be featured on there if you meet a few requirements. So the book can never have been published before. It needs to be, I believe, over 50,000 words. It needs to fit within a few of the genres that they feature there. And you have to have a cover, a blurb, and your full manuscript. So you submit it to them, and they feature the book for a 30-day period. During that period, you want to let all of your networks know about your book, because you want to encourage people to go on Kindle Scout and nominate your book. The point of that is to show the people that work at Kindle Scout that your book is appealing to the public.
Right.
So you're hoping to get the hot label. There's a hot and trending label that is kind of featured very prominently up at the top, and it brings more, viewers to seers since it's featured. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to understand too about Kindle Scout that just because you could have 3,000 nominations throughout the campaign, and you could have been hot the entire time, but if your book is not at the quality they want, or maybe it's just not in the genre, you never know exactly what they're looking for, but it's not all about the votes in the hot label. So there is someone behind the scenes making a qualitative determination on whether they want to offer you a publishing contract.
Right.
And it works the other way too. So I've noticed a lot of books that they were never hot and trending, and then they got a publishing contract and they're great books. So it can work both ways.
And that's what I think is great about the model, is that it's a hybrid like this, because it's not purely getting voted up or getting voted down.
You don't want it to be a popularity contest.
Exactly. And so in the world of independent publishing, it's obviously a huge assortment of types and quality of books that just get uploaded. Kindle Scout is a good way to find books that are of a markedly higher quality, by far, than the average self-published book.
That's right. It is a great way for readers to sift through a market that has been somewhat flooded, because there is no barrier to entry with self-publishing. I mean, granted, there can be some wonderful books that have not gone through any traditional publishing house or Kindle Scout or any program like that, and often they will rise to the top through reviews and word of mouth. But Kindle Scout definitely helps readers to sift through some of those books. And I thought it was interesting, just another note on kind of how the staff at Kindle Scout judges a book based on the quality. When I had my first conversation with them after my book was selected, I realized that there were not one but 3 people who had actually read the whole book. So I thought that was really interesting. Granted, the program is growing, so I don't know. I think it's probably going to be harder for that many people to read the book, but they definitely put some thought into what they're choosing, for sure. And you certainly, as you mentioned, you don't get the kind of full white glove package that you might get from a HarperCollins or, you know, one of the larger publishing houses. But the author does get an advance to help fund some maybe or replace some money that they've put into the book before Kindle Scout. And the editing process, I was very impressed by. Mm-hmm. So once my book was selected, I sent in the final manuscript, and they assigned an editing team. I believe that they do some in-house, and they outsource some to Kirkus.
Okay.
Mine was through Kirkus, and it was fantastic. I mean, the editor gave me a full 7-page write-up of all the details of my writing, a character sheet, you know, where the weaknesses were, where the strengths were. So I was kind of expecting a copy edit, mm-hmm. And I wasn't promised anything more than a copy edit, but I did end up getting a lot more, which made me feel great about, you know, they obviously cared about the quality of the book they were putting to market, and it allowed me to improve my book a lot.
So let's talk the timeline on Kindle Scout. So you write your book first, which obviously can take any amount of time. Then when you put it up on Kindle Scout, it's 30 days?
That's right. And they have 45 days total to let the author know if they want to select the book.
So does that include the 30 days, or is it after the 30 days, then they have 45 more?
Oh, sorry. It includes the 30 days. So your book will be featured for 30 days, and then they have 15 more days to let you know. Usually, I mean, I've observed that it's much sooner, like mm-hmm. within 3 to 4 days, they'll let you know whether they've selected you for publication. But they have up until 45 days total.
And then how long do they devote to the editing process?
So it's a good question. And like I said, I think they're very careful about what they want to promise, because I think they're still trying to decide at what level they're going to offer editing services. So they tell you that you might get a copy edit, right? But I ended up getting a lot more than that. So I don't know how that's going to play out in the future, and I think they're still feeling that out. But the editing process and the communication is great. So they said you're assigned an editor in, I think it was about a 2-week time frame that this person was going to get back my edits, and I was given an exact date as to when they would be returned. And then it was up to me to incorporate those edits and then send it in. Now, one thing that was a little bit tough is I incorporated some edits, and I actually added brand new paragraphs, and, you know, I made some significant changes, and I don't think that the book got the look over after that that maybe some of the bigger publishing houses might give it. So it's probably a time constraint on their part, but I ended up with a few typos in my first published manuscript because of that, and a book blogger who was the first to read my book actually pointed them out to me, took the time to circle them all. So luckily Kindle Press did fix them, mm-hmm. But for the first release, there were those typos, minor stuff.
Which even the big presses have, yeah. And then, like you say, you were one of the first, so Kindle Scout's still going through these teething problems. Right. How long after they accepted you did they actually publish the book?
It could have been a lot sooner if I had had my manuscript ready. When all was said and done, for me, it was like 3 months after. But that was because I took a lot of time to go over my manuscript When some people, when they submit it to the first time, that's their final copy. So for some people, I would say the turnaround could be like a month and a half after they're selected to market, or maybe sooner.
Because 3 months even is lightning fast in publishing. A lot of publishing houses, under a year is unheard of. And 2 to 3 years is pretty typical. So you do get that immediacy.
And it was fast then.
Right. Well, and people who, there's a lot of debate within writing circles about writing to the market. But some people are very good at that, and in such a case, they do want to take advantage of a Kindle Scout or something that's going to have a faster turnaround so that whatever they've got is still timely when it gets published.
Right. It's important to note, I think, that I know a lot of my fellow authors had hired a freelance editor in advance to submitting my manuscript to Kindle Scout. So when you submit to them, you really want your manuscript to be the best it can possibly be. And I did invest some money with a great freelance editor at the Polished Pen, Maxanne Dobson. She was wonderful. And I think that's important to know, is that whether you're self-publish or submit to Kindle Scout, or really to, agents, you might want to invest some money in a professional freelance editor, because I think that helped me get chosen as well. The book was polished.
What are the terms of the contract that Kindle Scout offers you?
If you're selected for publication, you get a $1,500 advance. And obviously it's an advance, so I'm currently in the process of paying off that advance before I see any profits.
Right.
And it's a 5-year contract. And if you don't earn more than $25,000 within that 5-year period, then you or Kindle Scout can pull out of the contract. Otherwise, it can renew for another 5 years. They have rights. They have worldwide rights, and this is all just the ebook for Kindle. They have worldwide rights, and they have rights to the audio as well, which the author can get back after 2 years if they have not exercised those rights. There's some other details.
Is it Kindle exclusive? Is it only on Amazon?
Yes. It is only on Amazon. And it's part of the Kindle Lending Library. Changed the name on that.
Kindle Unlimited, yeah.
Yes. So it's part of that as well. Which the benefit is you do have rights to the print book. So if you wanted to go after an agent, see if they would represent your print book, you can kind of harness the sales that you've gotten off of your ebook and some of the Amazon marketing to, market your paperback as well. So you can do anything you want with your print book, but they have rights to the ebook.
And the audio rights, if they pull the trigger on that and do an audio book, do they pay you another advance for the audio, or?
It's not another advance, and it's also, so I believe that they get 25%, sorry, the author gets 25% of the profits on the audiobook. I need to double check, I'm fairly certain on that. And you get 50% of the profits for the ebook sales. And this is, if someone just self-publishes, you can get around 70%. So that's the difference. But through Kindle Scout and Kindle Press, you get the marketing help. So I think it's a good choice, even though the prices are a little less.
Well, and
compared to the traditional publishing houses, it's a lot more.
Yes, and the thing about self-publishing on Kindle is that nobody actually gets the full 70% because they're also going to charge you a delivery fee depending on the size of your file. So 50% is not that much lower than what people who are going straight to market are getting necessarily, and it very much depends on the type of book. So they charge, I think it's 15 cents per megabyte or some such. So if you're going in at the low price points, that's a pretty significant percentage. So and the marketing, Kindle marketing is definitely got a real value to the author, because if you're going in on your own, it's just your Twitter account, and maybe you hire a publicist, but even then it's much more straightforward to get effective marketing when you've got a big company at your back. And so what kinds of things have they done for the marketing?
So good question. And one thing I want to say is that for an author to put their book on Kindle Scout, I think it's great whether you get selected for publication or not, because it's an advertisement just being up there for 30 days on your book. So it's kind of fantastic. You know, it's a win-win situation, really. Once you're selected, there is a 30-day period that you have to wait it out before being eligible for Amazon marketing. So you're kind of featured in certain emails, and you know, you're on the page of their publications, and that alone does get you a lot of interest. But after that 30 days, you're eligible for a higher level of marketing. So I know that some fellow authors have been chosen for a sale where they put their book on sale and then they feature it. You know, there's a variety of different ways that Amazon can feature it. Then after 90 days, you're eligible for an even higher level of marketing. And this I know through the author community of, you know, fellow authors who are also Kindle Scout winners. I don't know the exact details. So I haven't been told directly by Kindle Scout that that's the deal, but that's kind of the word on the street.
And has your book been featured yet?
No, in fact, it was just a few days ago that it passed the 30-day mark. So definitely hoping for a feature, but I have to say, I mean, I believe that if I had just self-published, I wouldn't be at the ranking numbers that I am.
Right.
They change around, but, you know, I've been pretty proud of the ranking so far.
Yeah, I actually have had a book featured by Amazon, so I just went straight self-published, and it took a year until they noticed me, and it's only ever happened that one time. I think it's getting progressively harder and harder to do as more and more books flood the market. But I will say that is also very effective marketing if they elect to do that with your book. It's a lot more buoyant in the rankings, and they'll cut the price of your book, but they still pay you the same royalties, so it is a good deal. And I would think Sirens has a very good chance of that level of marketing, so fingers crossed that it gets selected for that. So why don't we talk a little bit about the process now for Sirens 2, and do you want to show us the dashboard and things like that for the process?
Sure, yeah. So before I do that, I'll just say, first of all, Sirens was written as one book, one really long book. And my freelance editor suggested, because it was a part 1 and a part 2 book, that I split it into 2. So book 1 definitely has a cliffhanger.
Okay.
And I've heard it mentioned in the reviews. Some people don't like cliffhangers. Some people are okay with cliffhangers. But it does have a cliffhanger. But my hope is that it whets people's appetite for the next book, which is Lost World. So I submitted that to Kindle Scout about 2 weeks ago. And it's up on there now. I will say, the first time I was on Kindle Scout, I was obsessing over getting the hot label.
Right.
I would blast my social media, my Facebook, my Twitter, whatever I could, to get that hot label because I wanted the attention of the Scouts to read the book. Book 2 is up there now, and it had the hot label for about the first week. And one thing I've noticed is there's about 3 to 4 times as many submissions on the site. And when I do a push to my social media to get that hot label again, it's really hard to get. So I have not achieved the label since that first week. But my hopeful thinking is that the Kindle Scouts are going to read it anyway since they have ownership of the first book.
Right.
And it's based on the quality of the book. So hopefully the book will speak for itself. But speaking of obsessing over stats, I wanted to show my page of my campaigns. Let me share the screen.
And so she's going to show us the author side, what you see if you put your book up on Kindle Scout.
So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll see on the bottom is Rising Tide, book 1 of Sirens, and you can see it's already been published. There's some campaign stats that I think it's helpful for Kindle Scout to share with you. So the campaign ended back in April, but when all was said and done, after the 30 days, I had that hot and trending label for 691 hours, and I had 1.9K total page views.
And so just to go backtrack just a little bit, the hot and trending label means you've had a certain number of nominations within an hour, or how do you gain that?
Good question. Yes. So Amazon updates that number per hour, and it's based on how many nominations you're getting. And they don't share with you the number of nominations that any book has, your own or others. But that hot label is just giving people a sense of what is popular among the viewing public of the site. And then you'll see Sirens Lost World. I have 12 days left in the campaign. I've been on Hot and Trending for 134 hours. And total page views of 460. So this campaign is definitely, a tougher campaign than the first one. And as I said, the program is growing in popularity. I mean, 3 to 4 times the amount of books on it. So wish me luck.
And sequels are always like that, but the sales curves are also different for sequels. Because they help pull the first book back up the rankings in sales. So I think if Amazon's being intelligent about this, they should definitely.
I think so too.
Yeah. So yeah. The other thing about nominating books on Kindle Scout is if the book gets published, you get a free copy.
That's right. So one of the ideas, which I think is really cool, is to get an early readership of fans and people to put up reviews before the book is formally released. So, plus, Kindle Scout needs an incentive for people to go on their site and actually nominate books. Otherwise, why would they? So, people feel like they have an input on what they're reading and what's out there, and they get a free e-copy. Mm-hmm. I did run into a ton of my friends and people I know that just don't even have a Kindle or an e-reader. Mm-hmm. And in those cases, I'm lending them the paperback. But I think it's a great way to just encourage readers to post those early reviews. So my book was pre-released for about 2 weeks before the full release, and I had maybe 10 or so reviews right out the door, which is great. And views on Amazon, they're like currency. I mean, every author just obsessively looks at how many reviews are coming in. I encourage all types of honest reviews. I mean, I'm just happy when someone reads my book, and I love hearing, I have pretty thick skin, so I love hearing all types of feedback, good or bad. And I think right now it's been a month and I have about 32. So.
Which, for people who aren't writers or have never published a book and had it go up on Amazon, may not appreciate how many that is. A lot of people will struggle to break 10, to break into those 2-digit figures in reviews. And to have reviews show up on release day is huge. That gives you a huge boost to your rankings right off the bat. Because the Amazon sales site also has a hot and trending list, hot and new books. And you are eligible to get on that list the first 30 days of your release. And it's a big deal to be able to get on that list. And if you already have 10 reviews when you go live, you're almost a shoo-in for that list, at least in your genre category, and ideally on the site as a whole.
Right, absolutely. And the good thing about it is there's, 70 or so Kindle Press authors out there now, and the success of everyone kind of, rising tide lifts all boats. So Rachel Carr's It's a vampire book, released with me. Her rankings were, better than mine, but we were right next to each other, and so it popped up in that, customers who bought this book also bought this one, and I feel that her success really helped mine as well. So, we all want each other to do well, and it really helps to boost sales and boost reviews.
Because that's something that's very coveted as well for authors in general, and indie authors especially obsess over this, is getting good also bots. Because if you show up in the also bots of a very top-selling book, then, like you say, it pulls your book on up. And Kindle Scout, it doesn't make all these things happen automatically, but it certainly gets the wheels going a little bit faster to enable you to, have these opportunities and have this visibility when you start out, which will make all the difference to your sales. So, Sirens is just a 2-book series, or could there be a third?
There could be a third. It's I think people will feel more complete when they finish book 2. It's not as much of a cliffhanger because, as I said, it was written as that one book. But there's definitely an overarching storyline that people are going to want to see more of at the end of book 2, and it's kind of a deeper cut within the first 2 books that's bubbling to the surface. So I have an outline in mind, and I'm in the early stages. I'm still brainstorming book 3, but I'm meeting with my freelance editor who knows the book inside and out, and we're going to kind of brainstorm, and I'm going to begin writing it very soon. So I'm excited about that.
And in the long term, do you think Kindle Scout's a program you're going to stay with, or do you have any thoughts about what next steps might be if you don't stay with the Kindle Scouts program?
You know, with my second book, I thought about whether I would just self-publish it or go with Kindle Scout again. I mean, I've had such a good experience. I'm so impressed by the quality of their editing and the people that work there and their responsiveness and, you know, willingness to work with you. I mean, they were very clear with me in our conversations that they're in the beta stage and they're really encouraging authors to give them feedback and help them develop and grow the program. So I feel like, you know, I've been in on the ground level and I love it so far. Hopefully I get chosen for book 2. But yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, if I had a book 3 and things go well, I would certainly submit to them again. Obviously, something that's happened with 2 authors in the Kindle Press program is that they've been chosen for larger imprints on Amazon, and that would be great. And I would be very happy to get an offer from the 47 North is the sci-fi imprint for Amazon. So that would be, I guess, a step up. But other than that, I've been really happy with the program.
So why don't we talk a little bit about the formatting that can go into these books as well. Shameless plug for my company, I'll admit. But I own a formatting company, and we specialize in making books look a little bit more upmarket, nice graphics and things like that. And your book has that in there. So you don't have to just go with the Amazon formatting.
That's right. When I had my conversation with the director of the program, and I asked if they did any special images or fonts, she said that they don't, but they would be more than happy to accept, you know, someone from the outside. And I had already worked with you guys, and, you know, it's those little details that makes you excited when you turn the page. Like, I love the images in it, and I love the different fonts, and I think it just gives it a level of professionalism that raises the book up and, you know, sends a message to the reader that this book has had, you know, the white glove touch, and so I think it makes a nice difference. Obviously, it's the images aren't necessary, but I think they're a nice touch.
Yeah, and we won't get too annoyed at Amazon for putting the start tag below the when you get the book. At least for the Kindle Scout program, it opens up with the text going all the way to the top, and you have to hit back to see our pretty images on the first
I did notice that.
That's putting the start tag in the wrong place. But we won't get bitter about that.
I've actually had people tell me that they love those little images. You know, it's fun, and it can be personalized to the book, which is cool.
Right. Yeah, and if you ever want to do signed ebooks or anything for like a giveaway, we can just put those in as images, and you can just email them to people.
And I love that. I had no idea that could be done. So
book 2 is up on Kindle Scout right now. And I highly recommend reading book 1. I'm loving it as I'm reading it right now. And the thing about voting for book 2 is if it gets picked, then you get it for free. And for that matter, going on to Kindle Scout, taking an interest in all of these authors and books that are trying to get this publication opportunity is a great way to also sort of shop for some possible free books down the road if they are of a high quality. So anything you want to say to everybody to encourage them, we'll definitely put the link.
Sure. No, I'd be so excited if you read my book. It's been a long time in the making, and, you know, I hope that everyone who's read book 1 is ready for book 2 and can nominate it and get a free copy. But as to what you said as well, I think why not always have 3 nominations in your queue, because it's almost a fun guessing game to vote for books that you're interested in that you think will win, and then you get free copies of them. So, and it's a great way to discover new authors.
Absolutely. So, best of luck. We'll get all the links up on the site and everything so people can go over and nominate. And thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Emily.